Welcome back to another episode of Everybody's Got a Podcast. So, today, the great debate rages on. What is that debate, you may ask? Well, you'll just have to listen and find out. Okay, so, now, today, we have trivia again. Thank the Lord. Or whoever it is that you thank. Could be your grandma, could be, Joe. Whoever Joe is. I got a cousin named Joe. But anyways, Trivia's back. So, of course, as always, well, not as always, as most of the time, I'll start this episode off with a bit of trivia. Now, of course, the episode will, the answer, will be revealed at the end of the episode, so you just have to stick around and listen and find out, unless you already know the answer, in which case, click off, go home, watch something else, or, listen, because, don't watch your podcast, that'd be kind of boring, anyways. So, the trivia question for today. It'll give you a bit of a hint as to what we will be talking about today. And I say we, I mean me. It's just me today. No Nastya, no Chad, no nobody, just me. Hope that doesn't sadden you. Hope you still like it. I think you will. Anyways, let's go ahead and get right into the... There's no drum roll. Where is it? Trivia. So, where does coffee originally come from? Now, when I say where does it come from, I mean, what's the earliest reliable record we have of coffee coming from a place, and where was it used? Now, there is a big debate between these two places. That is not what I'm debating today. But where do we have the earliest reliable records of coffee coming from? Hopefully you know it. If you say the other answer, then, give yourself a pat on the back. You know your stuff. But there's one specific answer, right? Because the other answer has a story that dates back earlier. However, it isn't shown to be that true. Sorry to break it to anybody. It's considered to be a bit apocryphal. Don't lambaste me, though. I'm just the messenger. As they say, don't shoot the messenger. Anyways, let's get into the debate today, because the debate is a big one. It will be fiery. I will be bringing emotion to this. I will be bringing my heart and soul into this debate. Well, it's just me, not much of a debate, but I will be here, and I will be getting angry at my microphone, as I'm doing for free. I don't even get paid to do this. Why do I do it? Anyways, let's get into this podcast. Alrighty then, let's get into this debate. This very serious debate about what we put in our bodies every morning. Now, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about coffee versus tea. Right? So, everybody, I would say 99% of people in the world drink some sort of coffee or tea in the morning to either wake themselves up or just simply because they find it to be delicious. I do it for both reasons, right? I don't specifically have my drink in the morning because I want to wake up. I do it because I just enjoy having a hot beverage in the morning. And I've even had a cup of hot water in the morning before as well, just, when I just didn't feel like having coffee or tea. I just thought, I'll have some hot water. It's not as good, but, it still satisfies that itch. Now, I'm not going to give away what I drink until later in the episode, just simply because, I don't want you to be influenced by my decision. Now, I will say, as always, I'm not a doctor, and I'm not a health professional. I'm just giving my opinion about what I enjoy the most, right? Because I enjoy both of them, but I do prefer one of them. Now, if you know me, you probably know which one I prefer, and it'll be no secret as to when I reveal it. However, for those of you who don't know, you'll be able to listen. You'll get a treat. So keep listening, and let's find out what it is. Now, before I get into this, I'm going to ask you another question. I know, an unprecedented second question. However, I like to involve you. You take your time out of your day to listen to this podcast. I feel like I should take time out of my recording to involve you a little bit, as a thank you for indulging yourself into this media that I create. So, anyways, before we get into this, I do want to know, so, what do you drink? Do you drink coffee or do you drink tea? Now, maybe you drink both of them. Which one do you prefer? Or, if you can't decide on either of those, if you had to choose one, which one would you choose? As always with the trivia question, say your answer out loud so you lock yourself in, right? You gotta make a decision. Can't say it in your head, right? Because then you say, well, I'm not gonna go into the whole, why you should say it out loud, but just say your answer out loud. If you could only drink one, which one would you prefer? I know which I would prefer, and let's get into this. We're gonna start with coffee, right? I'm gonna start by talking about coffee because, well, I like coffee and I like tea. So, also just because it's alphabetically first, and in my notes that's what I wrote first. I wrote coffee first, so get over it. Anyways, coffee's great though. Coffee is great because coffee has a great, wonderful flavor. It's got a strong flavor, doesn't it? Right? Everybody knows coffee has a nice, strong flavor to it, and that's why I think it's good for getting out of bed, right? Because it's like tea is very relaxing. It's calming. You drink it, it's got a nice subtle flavor to it. Coffee really screams in your face when you drink it. It's really gets into your face and tells you it's time to wake up. And you're like, okay, I'm getting out of bed. Jeez, sorry, leave me alone. So, that's just one of my reasons for. Also, coffee does have more caffeine per milligram than tea. I think coffee per 100 milligrams has about 8 or something like that, or 88 milligrams like per 100 grams of coffee, and black tea has like 45 and green tea has like 35. These are just numbers I remember from Google a couple of years ago, so I don't know exactly how perfect they are, but those are relatively basically coffee has the most caffeine out of between coffee, black tea, and green tea. Now, coffee is, slightly healthy for you. And if I remember correctly, I'm just spitballing here. If I remember correctly, black coffee is actually quite good for you in terms of antioxidants. Now, what exactly do antioxidants do for you? I'm not entirely sure, but I would suppose they're good, right? Because it's always on things, right? It's always like, oh, get your antioxidants because they're good for you. So I would imagine they're good for you, and people always say you should have them, and whatever you have, you should consume them. So I try to get a few in my day, and I would imagine a few of them don't hurt. I would imagine they're in loads of things anyway, so it's not like you're just going from zero to some. You're going from some to some more, right? So drink whatever you want, right? So black coffee does have that. Also, it's just really good, isn't it? Right? The smell of coffee. I think everybody will agree, even if you prefer tea, that coffee has a wonderful smell. It just smells so good. You go into a cafe, you smell the coffee, and you're just like, that smells so good, right? It just smells good. That's why I love coffee as well, because even before you drink it, it smells amazing. Tea also does smell pretty good, right? I definitely will. Green tea with jasmine, which is my favorite green tea, also smells really good, right? And coffee smells better though. That's just all I can say. Coffee smells better to me. I don't know what you prefer. Right, you can always just I know some people do like their fruit teas as well. I'm not a big fruit tea person. It just tastes like hot juice to me, and I'm not. Like if I'm gonna drink juice, I want it cold, right? Cold juice. That's how you drink juice, right? Cold. So yeah, but so even though it does smell amazing, I don't usually get coffee at a cafe just simply because it's kind of expensive, isn't it? So I usually prefer to make it at home, as do many people, right? I think as do most people prefer to make their coffee at home. Some people will go to Starbucks, but I prefer not to. Just simply because, one, there's no Starbucks near me, and two, even if there was, it would be expensive because Starbucks is like $5 a coffee or something like that. I think a regular Americano at Starbucks costs like $2 or something like that, which is more than what I pay to make it at home, and I make a pretty good coffee at home. It's not that hard to make a good cup of coffee. A lot of people think that you need some sort of espresso machine. That's just simply not true. I use a French press, right? So if you make coffee at home, how do you make it? Let me know. Like if you have me on some sort of social media, just send me a message. How do you prefer to make your coffee? Do you use a machine? Do you use a French press? Do you use a espresso? Do you instant coffee? I mean, instant coffee's still pretty good. I've had some pretty good instant coffees. Obviously, it's never going to be as good as like the actual stuff, just because it's got that like freeze dried, flash dried type of flavor to it. It's usually a bit bitter. It's usually kind of cheap. But yeah, I mean, I've had some pretty good instant coffees before. Something that I would, if I had it in a cafe, I would be like, it's not bad. I feel like that's what you want from instant coffee. Not bad. You know. But I mean, tea, of course, tea's cheaper. Tea's easier. So, and that's where tea has a point on there. But I'll get on all the tea stuff later, right? We're just talking about coffee for now. So, however, though, if I do go to a cafe, actually, just so many things just telling me things today. I want you to tell me so many things today. So when I go to a coffee shop, when I go to a cafe, I like to get a cappuccino with coconut milk. Just simply because, well, I can't have normal milk, and I don't like normal milk. It tastes like weird cheese to me. So I prefer to get coconut milk. And thankfully, the cafes near me are very accommodating, and they always have coconut milk, so it's pretty easy to do. Like a cappuccino though, made with coconut milk, it just takes out so much of the bite of the coffee that they put into it. Because it's like espresso and foamed milk or whatever how do you ever make a cappuccino? I've never made a cappuccino before. Because at home, well, I'll explain my home way of making it soon. But when I'm at a cafe, I do prefer the cappuccino with coconut milk because the coconut milk does add its own sweetness, and I don't even need to put sugar in there. It's just simply, coconut milk, coffee, put them together. There you go. That's all I need. I don't need anything else more than that. I don't need any sugar in there. Sugar just makes it too sweet. I'm not much of a sweet person when it comes to coffee. I like mine to be coffee flavored, right? That's why you get coffee. So, like coffee flavored ice cream, it doesn't taste, well, okay, never mind. It tastes pretty sugary. But just in general, though, cafes, though, when you do go to get coffee there, it's a great place to relax, isn't it? Like, who doesn't love just kind of sitting at a cafe, whether you drink tea or coffee? It doesn't matter. You just sit in a cafe, and for whatever reason, cafes are just calming. You go there, you sit down, and it's just like, you know what? Whatever my problem is today, doesn't really matter. I'll deal with that after my coffee, after my tea. I'll just deal with it later. I don't need to. I've got my hot drink right now. That's all I need right now. So, I mean, cafes are just the best, right? So, I mean, I used to be a Starbucks person until I had some cafes open up here. And I found that Starbucks, to be honest, does have a great atmosphere, depending on where you go. But I would say most Starbucks do have a really good atmosphere. And it's really relaxing just to kind of sit down in there and just kind of, just relax. Especially if you bring your friends, you're able to just sit down and, have a nice conversation, enjoy whatever music they put on, especially if it's Christmas music. Just imagine yourself in the Starbucks. You're just sitting there in the comfortable chair. They got the Christmas tree up. They've got Michael Bublé in the background. And you've got your cup of coffee, which is probably peppermint flavored or gingerbread or something like that. And you're just relaxing. You can just feel the vibe, feel the winter, feel Christmas. Just kind of existing there, just feeling it. It's a great feeling, and that's just Christmas. And there are so many other days of the year, 364 if I'm going to be precise. And the rest of those days, while not as good as Christmas, are still pretty good. And to be honest, the Christmas ones, I mean, you can do it all December. Nobody's going to stop you. Even December 26th, nobody's going to stop you, right? So cafes are just, Starbucks always does a good job at the atmosphere. Their coffee, though, yeah, atmosphere 10 out of 10, coffee 3 out of 10. I know people like to harp on Starbucks coffee, but once you have a really good cup of coffee and you go back to Starbucks, you're just going to realize that Starbucks, it's not bad. You just drink it and it's just kind of nah. You just drink it and you're just like, oh yeah, I guess it isn't as good as I thought it used to be. But I think the atmosphere does make up for it. And you can get all sorts. If you get the blonde roast is a 6 out of 10. So, it's just much better. I think maybe they just roast their beans too much. And that's why it always has a really flavorless, flavorless, bitter type of flavor, right? If I could get my mouth around those words. So it's just, I mean, they do a good job. However, we do have some ones here that I do really like. There was one in Moscow that I really, really liked. They had this atmosphere that was like, oh geez, it must have been, it felt like a Turkish cafe type, like Middle Eastern type of vibe to it. And it was just kind of like a chain cafe, but they had just this really nice, like, I don't know, like, well, some of them, like, one of them had like a Middle Eastern type of vibe to it. Another one had like a rustic cabin type of vibe. One of them had like a library type of vibe. They were just really nice. They're really relaxing, and I really enjoyed them. So for me, coffee isn't just about the coffee. It's about the whole experience and what coffee means to me. Coffee for me is a very social drink. It's very much, your friend comes over, you sit down, hey, you want a cup of coffee? You have a cup of coffee and you just sit and chat. Tea's the same way as well, but I've got a history with coffee. And so I just find coffee to be just such a wonderful social mixer. Much better than alcohol. Alcohol does, I mean, obviously you can meet a lot of people with alcohol, but I find that when you meet people with coffee, it's just a better experience. Coffee just makes things better. And I mean, you can imagine too the same thing as well. Even having cheap coffee, but like just having like just imagine yourself, on a plane. It's a red-eye flight. You're flying over the Atlantic Ocean. It's 2 a.m, and you go back and you say, "Can I get a cup of coffee, please?" And they give you a small little airport cup of coffee. It's bad coffee. It's 2 out of 10, 1 out of 10. But you just sit down in your seat. It's dark. You're flying over the Atlantic Ocean. 8 hours till you get home, or however long it's gonna be, and you just take a sip and you just think, I can wait. I'll be there soon. I'll watch a movie. I'll drink my cup of coffee, and it'll be soon. But it doesn't matter how long it takes. I've got my coffee. It just tastes good. Even if it's decaf, I like decaf as well. I keep a bag of decaf in my freezer. Now, getting into how I make it at home, I make it with a French press because it's easy, to be honest. Like, a lot of people think it's hard to use a French press, but it's not. Everybody has their own way of making French press. However, I found I like really strong coffee, like really strong coffee. And so the way I like to make my coffee is it's a bit unorthodox. I got it from, well, if you're a coffee fan, maybe you've watched James Hoffman videos, and I kind of riffed off of his idea. But what I do is I pour the coffee I scoop it into the French press. And then I put about as much water as I think I do. I've done it so many times I just eyeball it now. I don't even remember how much I put in there. But I just know exactly where the coffee goes in the French press and how much water to fill it up with. And I put it in there. And here's the weird thing. I mix it up. I mix up all the coffee and the water all together. And then I let it sit for like 12 minutes, which is, I know it's a really long time for a French press, but that's how long I do it. And it comes out really strong. Like, if you're not a strong coffee fan, you'll drink it and you'll be like, but that's how I like it. That's how I really, really like it. Even the decaf one, that's how I do. Although I do the decaf a bit less, just because, well, I usually have decaf late at night, and therefore having that strong of coffee late at night is like, it keeps you awake, even if there's no caffeine in there. The whole just type of shiver you get from the first sip is, it's enough to wake you up. But yeah, so coffee's great everywhere. It's great at work too. I like to go to work and I like to sit down, and I get there because I'm a teacher, and I sit down before all my classes start and I just have a cup of coffee. Like, I always get to work like an hour early or 45 minutes early, and I just sit down and you just have a cup of coffee, and you feel like I feel like a cup of coffee just resets my mind. It resets my brain. Whenever I show up anywhere, if I sit down, have a cup of coffee, I feel like, okay, I'm ready for this now. And even a cup of tea, I think just even a hot drink just does it, but mostly coffee because I love coffee so much. And I feel like I just have so many stories related to this where I just kind of, you just get to work, you have a cup of coffee, and you feel like, okay, I'm here. I'm ready to work. I'm ready to do this. Coffee just does it for me like that. Anyways, let's get into the other side of this debate, which is tea, right? Now, I do love tea. I'm a big fan of tea as well. And so tea is great. to put it shortly, it's great. There are many different types of tea that I drink. I would say I primarily drink in the winter I drink black tea, in the summer I drink green tea, and the green tea of choice is going to be with jasmine, just because, well, I don't know, it has this like herbalish type of flavor to it to me that's just really nice. It's like this bittery type of like bitey type of. I don't know how to describe jasmine in green tea, but it adds such an amazing flavor to it. And to be honest, this morning I started my day with green tea with jasmine because I was like, I'm gonna skip coffee this morning. I'm just gonna go for green tea, something that's gonna be a bit more of a mellow wake up. Because today, I was going with someone and we were going to the park and we were gonna go rowboats in the water. And I thought, I don't want to be like, yeah, when I get there. I want to be like, yeah, when I get there. So I had green tea with jasmine today. And to be honest, it was ideal. I was even just kind of a bit in a funk this morning. I was a bit of a haze. And I thought, you know what? Green tea just to me just sounds amazing. It sounds like what needs to be drank this morning. So I did. Black tea in the winter though. I think just because kind of in the same idea, black tea is also, it's going to be a bit of a stronger flavor, a bit more bitter, a bit more like in your face type of tea. And I find that works better when there's snow outside and it's cold. A bit of black tea to kind of just like, I don't know, just to kind of get you going. Yeah, and it just does such a good job at it too. And it's just, I don't know, black tea does, it wakes you up like coffee, but not as strongly. Coffee really, as I said, it gets in your face. Black tea does kind of lift you out of bed, where green tea basically just kind of comes up to you and says, hey, it's time to get out of bed. Black tea's like, all right, get out of bed. And coffee just grabs you by the shoulders, get out of bed. And so, they all have their own different ways of waking you up. So, I mean, it's up to you however you choose. Basically, however your day starts. You get to choose, if you're going to have coffee or tea with it. Now, I usually prefer coffee just in that sense. I guess another thing about tea, though, as well, is it's really easy to make, because they come in those little bags. And, it either comes in a little, like, shreddy type of baggy thingy that Lipton ones come in. Or what I prefer is those little like nylon pyramid bag thingies. I like those because they stay together. They don't rip like the other ones do. And I feel like they just distribute the tea better for some reason. I don't know. I think it's just my association with like the teas that come in those pyramids are usually higher quality tea anyways. Because it's probably more expensive to do, I guess. I don't know. I like to buy, to be honest, I do like to make tea in a French press as well, because there is a brand of tea that I like called, oh God, am I really going to try this? It's a French brand, Demos, you get the idea. It's kind of expensive. It's like $15 for like a bag, for a box. It actually comes in a tin, like a little metal tin. With very beautiful, very beautiful. I do highly recommend that you Google it. It's like Demis Frere, something like that. Yeah, I'll Google it. Maybe I'll just splice that in later, but probably not. But it's a really good tea, and I do highly recommend that you get it because, well, it's just like, I mean, the thing with tea is like it's got this weird spectrum that coffee doesn't really have. Coffee does have a larger spectrum. Because coffee's like, when you have a cup of bad coffee, it's quite bad. It can almost ruin your moment rather than just kind of going like, oh, it's just not as good. Tea is like, when you have a bad cup of tea, it's just like, it's all right. It's not the best tea I ever had. Whereas bad coffee is like, that's really bad, But tea, I also find that a really good cup of tea is like, that's good tea. Where coffee's more like, oh man, that is good, So it's like the spectrum of how good tea is. It's a much safer spectrum, It's more of like not bad to pretty good, whereas coffee's like really bad to having a moment good, right? It's like, oh man, that's good. I mean, they just have different spectrums to it. But tea, it's going to be a safer choice if you want to make sure that your cup of whatever you're going to drink is going to be good. And it lasts a long time too. Tea, right? I find coffee when it cools down, it's just kind of, it just loses its flavor, it loses its bite, Whereas tea is like when it cools down, it's like it just tastes the same, just colder, And so it's pretty reliable, especially in the winter, Like if you're going to be carrying it around, it's going to get cold. It just tea's a safer choice in that aspect, I think. And like, I don't know. Tea's just a really safe choice. It's easy, it's good, it's tasty. You could drink it with milk and sugar if you like it like that. I prefer my black tea to be just sugar, and I prefer my green tea to be just sugar, but less sugar than black tea. It's also good for you too. Black tea is like the same thing. It's got the antioxidants. Green tea as well. I know green tea is actually very healthy for you. Actually, it's like if you're gonna be having any of them, green tea is gonna be the best one for you to have. If you just can only have one caffeinated beverage, definitely go with green tea if you're looking for health benefits because, well, coffee, while it is like one cup of coffee is pretty good for you, it's actually, if I remember correctly, having one cup of coffee is healthier than not having any cups of coffee. And I don't know exactly why. I would Google that before you start recommending it to people, even though I just said it on a podcast. Um, I do believe that having a cup of coffee is better than not having a cup of coffee. And that, of course, is a black cup of coffee. Sugar obviously makes it worse. Milk depends on the milk. Not all milk is going to be bad. So, don't, you can put milk in there. That's why I always recommend like non-traditional milk or like non-cow milk because, like oat milk, coconut milk, almond milk, they have their own flavors to them. You don't need to put sugar in there because they add their own flavor to it. So, But going back to tea, of course, tea's just good. It's easy to get. It's easy to acquire. It's good for you. And just overall, it's good. Now, you may notice by the length of this episode which one I prefer the most, considering I talked about coffee for 15 minutes and I talked about tea for 5 minutes. Now there are a few more things I do want to say though. I feel like you probably have a sense of which one's my favorite. However, I want to talk about uncaffeinated ones real quick, or decaffeinated ones usually, because they don't come with, well, coffee is decaffeinated while tea is uncaffeinated, right? Because coffee, they have to blend the coffee or blend the caffeine out of it. Where tea, uncaffeinated teas, it's not from the tea plant, so therefore it doesn't come with caffeine, which means it's uncaffeinated. Now, uncaffeinated tea, my uncaffeinated tea of choice is going to be Rooibos because, well, South Africa, right? Now, I mean, I have a South African colleague, and I've got two. One of them is currently waiting to come back for a while, year and a half, and they introduced me to Rooibos tea. I'd had it before in America, but it was just called African red tea. It wasn't called Rooibos. I would imagine they thought Americans were too stupid or something. They thought we were just too dumb to be able to pronounce it, so they just called it African red tea. But I've had it before, and it was good. I was like, oh, that's a good tea. It's like red. It's like vanilla flavor. It's spiced, kind of tastes a bit like eggnog. And I didn't realize that that's just how it tastes. Like there was no extra flavors added to it. That's just how Rooibos tastes. It just tastes like, I always say it tastes like cake without the sugar, without the bad stuff. It's just like a cup of cake, but not sweet, but kind of sweet. It's like a vanilla flavor without the sweet, which is a weird way to describe it, but I think it does make sense though. I think it does make sense. So I do quite like Rooibos, and when I come home at the end of the day, I do like to have Rooibos, depending on if I have it or not, because I don't always buy it. It really depends on my mood. The same thing with decaffeinated coffee. Decaffeinated coffee is good. I usually have it in the winter though, just simply because, well, like I can't make instant decaf coffee, which means I have to break out the French press for it as I don't have a machine. And that does, well, sometimes you just don't feel like cleaning a French press because it's not a lot of work. It takes like less than a minute to clean, but sometimes that minute is just it's just too much. You just don't want to do it. So you just don't. Right? You just kind of say, I'll just have something else. However, though, this is where the third contender, a contender that is not yet mentioned in here, and that is chicory. What is chicory, you may ask? Well, it's a natural root that is blended to make a coffee-like drink. If you've never had chicory, I highly recommend that you get some good ones, or get some good chicory, because, well, it's like coffee, but it's naturally uncaffeinated, which means you can drink it any time of the day. If you want to have it at 10 o'clock at night and go to sleep at 10:30, you can totally do that because there's no caffeine in it. And they put lots of great flavors in there. The one I have is rosehip flavored. That's ROSEHIP. If you've never heard of it, it's very tasty. It's berry. And then, I've had blueberry ones before as well. That was very tasty. I've had standard ones. It just tastes like different coffee. It tastes a bit more earthy, but it's very good. I do highly recommend getting chicory if you've never tried it, because it is uncaffeinated. So, yeah, get it. Try it. Why not? You got time, you got life, you got days. Go get some chicory. Do it. Uh, but anyways, so as I said before, I think you have figured out what my preference is. My preference is, of course, coffee. Coffee's the best. But not so much so over tea. Because I would say, like, if I had to rate them out of 10, I would give coffee a 10 out of 10 and tea a 9 out of 10. Something about tea for me is just kind of like, I feel like I need an occasion to drink tea. Well, not really. I don't really need an occasion to drink tea, but I feel like when I drink tea, it's because I didn't want coffee. And that's when I drink tea, right? When I don't want coffee. Or if I just find a reason to not drink coffee, I'll go with tea. But tea is still great. I'll never turn down a good cup of tea. I like a lot of the good teas as well. As I said, I spend some good money on good tea as well. It's not just the coffee that I spend the good money on as well. So, anyways, let's get back to the trivia, though. So, where in the world, so we're going to go with which country, do they think that coffee originates from? I'll give you a second to think about it. Make sure you say your answer out loud if you haven't before. Make sure you say it out loud. Give you a second to think. I'll shut up. I'll shut up. Okay. So, where do you think coffee originally originates from? Well, the answer I found was Yemen. Now, a lot of people say Ethiopia. If you said Ethiopia, good on you, because that is a good guess. And there is the Kaffa region of Ethiopia. There's this story that there was like a farmer that found out his goats were eating the berries from the coffee plant. And he found out that was making him really hyper and jittery. And, he decided to make it into a drink. They say that's apocryphal, though. So, we don't want to be putting non-facts on this show. This is a factual show. But they say it's apocryphal. So the answer where they found the most reliable source was Yemen. There's a big debate on it, so I don't want to cause any wars or anything like that. But, Yemen is the answer. Now, we do get the word coffee in English from the Dutch, right? I don't know how to say it in Dutch, but it looks very similar. It's like Koiffe. So if you speak Dutch, have a go at it. Or actually, to be honest, you probably know, and it's probably just pronounced coffee. Because, well, Dutch is fairly similar to English. Yeah, who knew, right? Who knew? Anyways, I think that's enough for today. So, thank you for listening. I do appreciate anybody who listens to this. It's a passion project of mine, so anybody who enjoys it, I'm glad you do. I'll be putting these out as long as I live because I just enjoy, I enjoy speaking into the microphone. If you have any topics you'd like me to cover, I can cover anything. I like to just discuss things, especially if I can get a guest on here. I do quite like guest episodes. I'd love to get a second microphone for that, but they are expensive. So, maybe in the future I'll be able to afford a second microphone to do a special microphone for the guest. Otherwise, I just have them speak to the other side of this microphone. It works, kind of. Not as good as two microphones, but it kind of works. But again, so thank you so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you're having a wonderful day. I hope you had a wonderful morning. And now, whatever it is that you're doing is just going well, right? So, thank you again, and goodbye.